Hi, I'm Madeline Harper. At my MIT graduation, still holding my diploma, Mom shoved a folder into my hands and whispered, "Sign it, give the AI to Eliza." They said she had the face, the charm, the spotlight. While I was the girl behind the keyboard, but they didn't know SpaceX had already called. I hadn't even had a chance to take a picture with it to let the moment feel real before she pressed it into my chest. People were cheering around me, families hugging the sharp clack of heels against the concrete as graduates ran to take pictures under the MIT banners. I'd spent 4 years here coding in the basement labs, skipping parties, living on coffee and cheap instant noodles. This was supposed to be my day. Instead, the stage was set for Eliza Harper. She was 24, a full 2 years older than me, with perfect hair and that influencer smile that made people call her America's sweetheart. She wore a white dress that flowed around her as she moved, a light blue sash tied perfectly at her waist. The cameras loved her and she knew it. "Move to the side," Maddie Dad said, his hand on my shoulder as he steered me out of the frame. "Let Eliza have her moment." My cap tilted slightly as I stepped back, clutching the diploma so hard the corner bent. I watched as Mom fixed Eliza's sash, smoothing it down, and whispered something that made Eliza laugh. A photographer called out, "Over here, Eliza," and she turned, that practiced grin lighting up her face as the cameras clicked. Behind her, the banner read, "Eliza Harper, Innovator of the Year." I stood on the edge of the photo, barely in the frame. Someone stepped in front of me, blocking me out completely, and I didn't even bother moving. I had built Sentinel from scratch. An AI system that could detect a cyber attack in under 2 seconds, built to adapt and learn to protect hospitals, schools, small businesses that couldn't afford big tech security. It wasn't flashy, but it worked. I worked. Every late night, every skipped holiday, every coffee-stained notebook on my dorm desk had led to this. And now they were giving it away. Eliza turned, catching my eye for a split second. She smiled soft, almost pitying, like she was sorry I didn't understand how the world worked. Then she was pulled back into another pose, another camera flash, another moment that didn't belong to me. I felt a hand on my arm. Mom again. Her lipstick was perfect, hair pinned into that tight bun she wore for every important event. "We'll talk in the car," she said, her voice low, controlled the way it always was when she wanted something to feel normal. I nodded because I didn't know what else to do. The ceremony continued around us, the dean calling out names, students crossing the stage, families cheering, flowers being passed over the railing, cameras catching every second. I barely heard my name when it was called. Barely felt the handshake, the pat on the back from a professor I had done research with for 2 years. I stepped down the stage looking for my family, but they were huddled around Eliza, taking selfies, passing her flowers, laughing as if this was her graduation. She wasn't even a student here. I walked toward them anyway, the folder still in my hand, the paper warm now from my grip. Eliza was showing the back of her phone to Mom, scrolling through the pictures they had just taken, picking which one to post first. Dad looked up and saw me. "There you are," he said, reaching out to take the folder from me. "We need you to sign that, honey, so we can get the process started." I looked down at the maroon folder, the gold lettering catching the sunlight. My name wasn't on it. Not yet. I tightened my grip on the folder, feeling the paper edges press into my palm. "I'm not signing anything right now," I said, keeping my voice steady. Dad's smile slipped just a flicker, but it was enough. He glanced at Mom, who was adjusting Eliza's hair for another photo. "Honey, this is for the best," he said, lowering his voice like we were sharing a family secret. "We've talked about this." "No, you talked about it," I said. "I didn't." Behind him, Eliza was laughing with 2 men in navy suits, one of them holding a press badge, the other flipping through a glossy folder with her name printed in bold. I saw the MIT logo on the corner, a rush of heat climbing my neck. Eliza turned, catching my eye, and her smile was soft, almost sad. She mouthed, "Just sign it." My heart thudded so hard it made my vision pulse. I looked around, seeing families taking photos, friends hugging professors, shaking hands. My graduation was happening, and I was invisible in it. Mom finally stepped forward, her perfume sharp in the breeze as she tucked a stray hair behind my ear. "Madeline," she said, using the voice she reserved for when she needed me to behave, "we don't need drama today. Let Eliza handle the launch. You can keep working on your projects." I opened the folder. The first page had the Sentinel logo I designed in my dorm, the geometric lines I sketched on a napkin at 2 a.m. digitized and cleaned for a pitch deck I never approved. Below it in heavy font it read Intellectual Property Transfer Agreement. There were lines for signatures. Dad. Mom. Eliza. Their signatures were already their neat dated final. There was only one line left blank waiting for me. My hands shook. You've already signed it, I asked, my voice catching. It's for efficiency, Dad said, avoiding my eyes. It's your future too, honey, Mom added, pressing her hand on mine over the folder. Eliza stepped closer, heels clicking softly on the concrete, the photographer following her like a shadow. She reached out, touching my arm lightly. I promise I'll take care of it, Maddie, she said. You're the brain, I'm just the face. You don't want to deal with the spotlight, do you? I pulled my arm away. She flinched, but the softness on her face didn't change. I could smell the coffee from the cart nearby, hear the distant cheer as another graduate's name was called. My name was supposed to be on that screen behind the stage, the one now showing Eliza's face with the words Future of AI in bold white letters. It should have been me. Eliza was saying something, but her voice faded as the blood rushed in my ears. I thought about every night I spent in the lab while Eliza was out doing sponsored makeup tutorials. Every line of code, every test, every time I watched the sunrise from my dorm window because I was still working. They didn't care. I looked back down at the folder. At the blank line. Not yet. I snapped the folder shut, the sound sharp enough that Eliza blinked. Dad's jaw tightened, Mom's hand dropped from my arm. The photographer stepped back, unsure if he should keep taking pictures. I'm not signing this, I said, clear louder than I meant to. Mom's eyes narrowed, but she kept the tight smile. We'll talk about this later. Eliza's phone chimed and she looked down, her face lighting up. It's the article. They just posted it. She turned the screen toward me. There she was standing under the MIT banner, holding a certificate with the Sentinel logo, her name printed under it. The headline read, Eliza Harper, the new face of AI. I didn't see my name anywhere. I turned and walked away before anyone could stop me, clutching the folder to my chest as if it were the only thing left that was mine. Behind me I heard Dad's voice, calm but tight. Give her a minute. But I didn't need a minute. I needed them to see that I wasn't going to disappear just because they wanted me to. I found a quiet corner behind the building, the noise of the ceremony muffled by the brick walls. My hands shook as I opened the folder again, scanning the document line by line. My eyes caught on a clause halfway down the page. Full transfer of intellectual property patents and rights, including all future iterations and developments of Sentinel, to Eliza Harper as primary owner and public representative. I felt the world tilt slightly. They weren't just giving her the launch, they were giving her everything. I closed my eyes, took a slow breath, and opened them again. And for the first time that day, I felt cold, clear anger cut through the noise. Number. Not yet. Don't be selfish, Madeline. This is for the family's reputation. Mom whispered, her hand tight around my wrist. Around us the crowd cheered as Eliza waved her white dress, catching the sunlight, the gold sash fluttering as she moved. A photographer shouted her name and she turned, wiping fake tears from her eyes before smiling wide for the camera. I stood there, the folder still pressed against my chest, trying to keep my breathing even. Mom's nails dug into my skin as she leaned closer. Smile, Maddie. We can't have you ruining this moment. I swallowed, forcing my face into something neutral. I couldn't look at Eliza, couldn't look at the stage that should have been mine. Here, Dad said, pressing a pen into my hand. It's just paperwork, honey. We'll sort out your shares later. Shares. That's what they were calling my life's work now. Eliza's voice rose over the noise, soft and sweet, as she faced a line of reporters. I couldn't have done this without my cousin Madeline, she said, dabbing her eyes dramatically. She just wants what's best for me. A woman in a navy dress clapped her hands, saying, That's so touching. A family of innovators. I felt something crack inside me as Eliza turned, accepting a bouquet of white roses from one of the sponsors. She posed with them, the petals brushing her cheek as the cameras flashed again and again. No one saw me standing there. No one cared. The folder grew heavier in my hands as I watched them celebrate her, calling her brilliant young genius the future. Each word dug deeper, a reminder that none of this belonged to her. A warm, frail hand slipped into mine. I looked down, seeing Grandma Evelyn, her eyes soft but sharp as always. "Don't let them rewrite your story, sweetheart," she whispered. My throat tightened, but I didn't speak. I just squeezed her hand back, holding on to the only person who saw me. Eliza was laughing, now hugging Mom, posing for more pictures. "You're the real star," Mom said to her loud enough for everyone to hear. I felt the pen in my hand, cold and heavy. Dad tapped the folder, pointing to the blank line. "Just sign, Maddie. We'll handle the rest." I opened the folder again, the words blurring for a second before they snapped back into focus. Full transfer, public representative, family alignment. Lies wrapped in legal terms. Eliza looked over, her eyes shining with tears that didn't match the smirk at the corner of her lips. She mouthed, "Please," I wanted to scream. Instead, I closed the folder again, holding it tight against my chest, stepping back as Mom reached for it. Eliza's phone chimed and she lifted it, showing Mom a post that had already gone up. Her face smiling under the MIT banner, holding a certificate with the Sentinel logo. The caption read, "A new era begins." No mention of me. I took another step back, bumping into a table where a small glass of water rattled. I steadied it, feeling the cold seeping into my fingers. "You're embarrassing yourself," Mom hissed, her eyes narrowing. I lifted my eyes to her. "No, you're embarrassing me." She opened her mouth, but I turned away, pushing through a small crowd of people congratulating Eliza. My cap slipped, almost falling, but I caught it before it hit the ground. I didn't stop walking. I didn't look back. The cheers grew louder, and I heard someone shout, "Eliza Harper, the tech genius." I kept moving. The folder pressed so tightly to my chest that I could feel the edges leave marks on my skin. I stopped near the edge of the quad, trying to catch my breath. The folder still pressed into my chest like a shield I couldn't put down. I could hear the loudspeaker crackle as the announcer welcomed Eliza to the stage, calling her our brightest young innovator. My stomach twisted. A group of students walked past, arms linked, laughing, holding flowers, and I stepped further back into the shade, the sounds of the celebration muffled for a moment. "Madeline." I turned to see Mom striding toward me, heels clicking, face composed but her eyes sharp. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," she said. "We're a family, we do this together." I shook my head. "You've already decided, Mom." Her jaw tightened, but she glanced around, keeping her voice low. "Don't ruin this for Eliza. She's not the one who spent 4 years building Sentinel," I said. Mom's eyes flickered. "Eliza will handle the investors, the speaking, the press. You can focus on building. You never liked being in front of people anyway." That wasn't the point, but I could see she didn't care. Across the lawn, Eliza was making her way toward the stage, stopping every few steps to hug someone, to smile for a photo. She held the bouquet close, the white petals bright against her dress, her tears catching the sunlight. "Please, Madeline," Mom said softer, "now sign it, and this will all be easier. You'll get your share. You'll still be part of this." I looked at her, at the way she smoothed her hair, the way her hands kept adjusting the strap of her purse. She was nervous, but not for me. She was nervous for Eliza. Grandma Evelyn's voice cut through the noise of my mind. "Don't let them rewrite your story." I swallowed, looking down at the folder, the weight of it digging into my arms. A cheer erupted from the crowd as Eliza stepped onto the stage. She turned, waving with her free hand, tears streaming down her cheeks in perfect lines as the camera zoomed in. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaking in a way that sounded rehearsed. I couldn't have done this without my cousin Madeline, who believed in me. The crowd applauded louder, people looking around, searching for me, but no one really seeing me. I stayed in the shadow of the tent, clutching the folder, unable to move. Eliza kept speaking, her words flowing like honey, thanking sponsors, thanking professors. She had never worked with, painting herself as the visionary, the leader, the face of Sentinel. She paused, lifting her hand to wipe away another tear, the cameras flashing to catch it. I saw the screen set up around the quad, showing her face, the Sentinel logo floating behind her, her name printed in bold under the words "Future of AI." Then for a moment, her eyes flickered past the lights and landed on me. She didn't smile. She didn't look away. And in that second, I saw it. She knew exactly what she was doing. The camera shifted, zooming in closer, framing her perfectly, cutting me out of the shot, even as I stood there watching. I felt the folder slip a little in my grip, and I tightened my hold, the edges biting into my skin, grounding me in the moment. They weren't going to see me. Not today. Not yet. That night I found him. Tyler was standing under a string of lights, a glass of champagne in his hand, laughing, as Eliza leaned in close, her smile bright, her hand brushing his arm like it was nothing. I stopped just outside the tent, the cold air biting against my skin, the folder still clutched under my arm. He lifted his glass, clinking it softly against hers, his eyes warm, his laugh low. The same laugh I used to hear when we stayed up late debugging code in my dorm, when he promised me we were in this together. My stomach twisted. Eliza caught sight of me first, her lips curling as she stepped back, tilting her head like she was confused why I was there. Tyler turned, his smile faltering as his eyes met mine. "Madeline," he said, his voice soft, but I could hear the edge of guilt. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice calm, too calm. Tyler lowered his glass. "I was just with her," I finished, glancing at Eliza, who didn't bother hiding the smirk on her lips. "It's not what you think," he said quickly. I stepped closer, close enough to see the slight flush on his cheeks, the way his fingers tightened around the glass. "You promised me," I said, my voice low. "You said you'd protect Sentinel." Eliza sighed, pulling her phone from her clutch, ignoring us as she turned to check the screen, the glow lighting up her face. "I was helping," Tyler said, his voice cracking. "She said she just needed a demo, a look at the interface. She said it would help the pitch." My heart thudded hard. "You took my code." He shook his head, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "I just copied the UI, the front end." "She said you'd agreed." "I never agreed." I snapped, my hands shaking now, the folder pressing painfully against my side. Eliza glanced over, her eyes cold. "You're making a scene, Maddie." "Shut up," I said, turning back to Tyler. "You took my work and you gave it to her." "She paid me," he whispered so quietly I almost didn't hear it. The world seemed to tilt. "You sold me out," I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. Tyler reached for me, but I stepped back, shaking my head. The music inside the tent shifted, a soft pop song, starting laughter, echoing under the lights. "I thought you loved me," I said, my voice cracking. "I do," he said, but it sounded empty, hollow. Eliza's phone dinged, and she looked at the screen, her eyes lighting up. "Perfect timing," she said softly, and then she lifted the phone, turning on the front camera. "Hi everyone," she said, tears filling her eyes instantly as she tilted the camera for a live stream. "I just want to thank my cousin Madeline, who's always believed in me." I stood there watching her fake cry, her voice shaking as she talked about family, about support, about how we worked on Sentinel together. She didn't say my name again. I turned, pushing past Tyler as he called after me, my steps quick and sharp against the pavement as I left, the lights behind, the cold air burning in my lungs. I didn't stop until I reached my apartment, the silence of the hallway pressing in as I unlocked the door, stepping inside, locking it behind me. I dropped the folder on the kitchen table, the sound echoing in the small space, and pressed my hands against the counter, trying to steady my breathing. My phone buzzed. I glanced down the screen, lighting up with a new email. Subject: Sentinel code detected in system testing, sender SpaceX. I stared at it, the words blurring for a moment before clearing each letter, sharp, final. Requesting immediate verification of ownership and authorization. I sank into the chair, the glow of the email lighting up the dark kitchen. My hands trembled as I scrolled back to the subject line, reading it again, forcing each word into my brain. SpaceX, Sentinel. Verification of ownership. A sharp knock pounded on my door, jolting me up. "Madeline, open up," Tyler's voice called, muffled through the wood. I didn't move. Another knock, louder. "Please, Maddie. We need to talk." I pulled in a shaky breath, walked to the door, and unlocked it, swinging it open just enough to see his face. His hair was messy, his eyes wide, and he was breathing hard like he'd run up the stairs. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice flat. He swallowed, glancing down the hallway before looking back at me. "I didn't think it would go this far." "You took my code, Tyler." He flinched like I slapped him. "I was trying to help you." I laughed, cold and sharp. "Help me by stealing Sentinel." His shoulders slumped, his eyes darting to the folder still on the table behind me. "Eliza said it would be easier if she handled the pitch." She said you'd agree. I didn't. She paid me Maddie, he whispered, his voice breaking. I needed the money. I felt my stomach drop, a cold emptiness spreading in my chest. You sold me out. For what, a few $1,000s? It wasn't like that, he said, stepping forward, but I blocked the doorway. It's exactly like that, I snapped, feeling tears burn at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Maddie, please, he said, his hands lifting, palms open. I didn't mean to hurt you, you did. He froze, his mouth opening, closing, but no words came out. Behind him, I heard laughter from the street below, people leaving Eliza's party, their voices bright and carefree. I need you to leave, I said, my voice low. Maddie, now. He hesitated, then nodded, stepping back, his eyes glassy. I'm sorry. I slammed the door shut before he could say anything else, the sound echoing in the small apartment. I locked it, turned, and pressed my back against the wood, breathing hard. My phone buzzed again. I wiped my eyes, picked it up, and saw a notification pop up from Instagram. Eliza was live. I opened it, the screen filling with her face, her eyes, red tears rolling down her cheeks as she sniffled. I just want to thank my cousin Madeline, she said, her voice shaking perfectly. She's always believed in me, and I couldn't have done this without her support. Thousands of hearts floated up the screen, people typing, "You're amazing, Eliza, and such a powerful young woman." I stared at her, at the way she dabbed at her tears with a tissue, at the way she smiled through the crying. Outside, the city was quiet, the lights blinking against the dark sky, but inside me everything felt like it was on fire. My phone buzzed again, another email sliding into the inbox. From SpaceX, subject Urgent Sentinel system verification required, a single line beneath it. Please confirm your ownership of Sentinel immediately to avoid legal action. We need to speak with the person who wrote this code, a woman's voice said, clear and direct. I blinked, gripping my phone tighter as I pressed it against my ear, my mind spinning. This is Madeline Harper, I said, my voice quieter than I wanted. There was a pause on the other end, the faint sound of typing. Miss Harper, this is Karen Mitchell with SpaceX. Sentinel's code was flagged during a routine vendor integration, and it appears tied to an unverified sale. We need immediate clarification. I swallowed, my throat dry. Unverified sale, I repeated. Yes, she replied. The vendor claims full authorization, but the metadata shows conflicting ownership. If you're the original developer, we need proof before proceeding further. I pulled the phone away for a second, staring at the floor, trying to steady my breathing. Miss Harper, Karen's voice came again, calm but firm. I'm here, I said, forcing myself to focus. What happens if I can't prove it? There was another pause. If you cannot provide proof, we will proceed under the assumption of vendor ownership. However, if you are the rightful owner, we will protect your rights under federal IP law. My hands trembled. I thought about the hours in the lab, the video calls with my advisor, the logs on my laptop, the sticky notes with code scribbled in black ink, the voice memos I sent to myself at 3 a.m. I had proof. Can I send you documentation? I asked. Yes, she said. Send all relevant commit logs, dated video demonstrations, and any project notes you have immediately. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Okay, Miss Harper, she added, her tone softening slightly. We're not here to hurt you. We just want to know the truth. The call ended, leaving the apartment silent again. My phone screen reflected my face, pale and tired, eyes swollen from the night before. I pulled in a deep breath, walking quickly to my desk, flipping open my laptop. The screen lit up, the cursor blinking like it was waiting for me to decide. I opened the folder labeled Sentinel V1.0 and scrolled through the commit logs, each one stamped with my name, the dates stretching back 2 years. The first test run, the error logs, the nights I stayed in the lab until sunrise to fix a single broken line. I opened the video files, the ones where I explained the system architecture to Professor Halbridge over Zoom. My hair messy, dark circles under my eyes, but my voice steady as I described the adaptive response protocols. I dragged the files into a new email draft, attaching each one, carefully checking the metadata, the timestamps, the details. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the cursor blinking next to the to field. I typed Karen's email address. A sharp knock hit the door, breaking my focus. I looked up to see the handle turn. Mom stepped in, her expression tight, Dad behind her silent. Madeline, Mom said, closing the door. We need to talk. I didn't move, didn't close the laptop. What are you doing? She asked, her eyes flicking to the screen. Sending proof, I said, my voice calm. Dad cleared his throat, stepping forward. If you do this, Maddie, it'll ruin everything we've built for Eliza. You mean everything you've taken from me, I said. Mom's jaw clenched. You're being dramatic. This is bigger than you. I shook my head, the anger bubbling low in my chest. Number. It's exactly about me. Her eyes softened, but I saw the calculation behind it. If you send that, you'll tear this family apart. You'll lose everything. Your trust, your place in this family. I felt my heart pounding, my hand tightening on the edge of the table. I already lost everything, I said quietly. Mom stepped closer, reaching for me, but I moved back. Don't do this, Madeline, she whispered. I looked at her, then at Dad, who wouldn't meet my eyes, and then back at the blinking cursor on the screen. I pressed send. The whoosh of the email leaving my outbox was the loudest sound in the room. Mom's face went pale, her lips parting like she wanted to pull the words back, but nothing came out. Dad finally looked up, eyes hard, jaw tight. Do you understand what you've done? I closed the laptop, the click sharp. I told the truth. His hands clenched at his sides. You've put this family at risk, Madeline. I stood, the chair scraping against the floor. You did that the moment you chose Eliza over me. Mom stepped forward, reaching for my arm. They'll sue us. Do you understand? Eliza will lose her investors, your father will lose contracts. This isn't just about you. I pulled my arm back, shaking my head. It was never about me, was it? The silence that followed felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Dad's eyes narrowed, his voice low. Don't think you're above consequences, Madeline. We protected you. We paid for everything so you could play with your projects. My stomach tightened, but I forced myself to look him in the eye. You didn't pay for Sentinel. I did. Every late night, every hour I spent alone when you told me family mattered more than my work. Mom's lips trembled. We raised you. We gave you everything. I blinked, feeling the heat burn behind my eyes, but I wouldn't let it fall. No, you took everything. They stood there, frozen, the weight of the words pressing between us. A buzz from my laptop broke it. I flipped it open, my heart pounding as I saw the notification. New email. From Karen Mitchell, SpaceX. Subject acknowledged. Mom's eyes darted to the screen, her voice dropping, a dangerous calm settling in. Madeline, if you go through with this, you'll regret it. We can't protect you from the fallout. I closed the laptop, gripping the edges, grounding myself. I don't need your protection. Dad's nostrils flared. This is betrayal. I exhaled slowly. No, this is survival. They didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at me like I was a stranger in their kitchen. I grabbed the folder from the table, tucking it under my arm as I moved toward the door. The hallway felt cold, the air sharp as I stepped into it, the door clicking shut behind me. I stood there for a moment, breathing the scent of dust and old carpet grounding me. My phone buzzed again. A new email popped up. From Karen Mitchell, SpaceX. Miss Harper, we acknowledge receipt of your documentation. We request an in-person meeting to confirm authorship and next steps. The message ended with an address, a time, and a line that made my breath catch. We would like to meet you tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. My thumb hovered over the reply icon, the hallway silent around me. I thought about Eliza's face on the live stream, tears glistening under fake lights, her voice sweet as she thanked me for supporting her dreams. I thought about Tyler's voice shaking as he admitted he sold my code, about the cold betrayal that left me shaking in my own apartment. And I thought about the folder in my hand, the last piece of myself they hadn't taken. I lifted my head, the decision sharp, final. I typed a short reply, my thumbs steady now as I hit each letter carefully. I am ready to meet in person. I hit send, the screen glowing in the dim hallway light. I tucked my phone into my pocket, pulling the folder closer to my chest, feeling its weight like armor. Down the hall, I could hear a door open, someone laughing softly, the world going on as if everything hadn't just changed. I took a step forward, then another, each one quiet but solid. Outside, the city lights flickered against the dark sky, car headlights passing in slow glows. I walked toward the stairwell, pressing the door open, letting the cold air hit my face, letting it clear the noise in my head. Tomorrow, they would see me. Not the version they wanted. Not the silent girl in the corner of the photo. Me. And for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I stepped through the glass doors of the SpaceX office in DC, heart pounding so hard I thought they could hear it. The lobby was bright steel and glass everywhere, screens flashing launches and satellite maps, a quiet hum filling the air. I clutched my laptop tighter, feeling the weight of it in my hand, reminding me why I was here. A woman with sharp eyes and a calm presence stepped forward, holding out her hand. Madeline Harper, I nodded, taking her hand. Yes. I'm Karen Mitchell, she said, giving a small, reassuring smile. Thank you for coming. She led me down a hallway lined with framed mission patches and photos of rockets. Each step felt heavier, but I kept moving, matching her pace. We entered a conference room with a long table, a screen already set up, cables ready. Karen gestured to a chair. Please sit. I set my laptop down, my fingers brushing over the sticker on the lid, the one Eliza once teased me about. I opened it, the screen lighting up, familiar code waiting. Karen sat across from me, folding her hands. We need to understand Sentinel from the inside out. Walk me through it. I inhaled slowly, letting the air steady me, and began. I showed the architecture, the way the detection system adapted in real time, the protocols that let it identify threats in under 2 seconds. I pulled up commit logs, dates stamped late at night, early mornings, the timeline of every breakthrough. I opened the demo video, the one I recorded in my dorm at MIT, explaining why Sentinel was different, why it mattered. Karen watched, quiet, nodding occasionally, her eyes sharp but not cold. When I finished, the room fell silent, only the low hum of the HVAC above us. Karen leaned back slightly, letting the moment settle. Madeline, this is impressive work. You built something valuable. I swallowed, my fingers curling slightly against the edge of the table. Eliza claims she owns it. My family. She lifted a hand gently. We're aware. We traced the vendor pipeline. Sentinel was presented under Eliza's name, but the code's metadata, your commits, your video, none of that can be faked. I looked at her, my chest tight. If I go forward with this, my family will cut me off. They've already warned me. Karen's expression softened, but her voice remained steady. Madeline, SpaceX has a legal team. If you want to pursue your rights, we can protect you. I blinked, letting her words sink in. You don't have to be afraid of them, she said. You built Sentinel. You deserve the credit and the position if you want it. I stared down at my hands, the small scars from soldering circuits, the faint ink stains from late nights writing algorithms. This was what I had worked for. All those hours alone, the moments I thought no one would ever see me, had led here. Karen leaned forward, folding her hands together on the table. We need someone to lead Sentinel here, Madeline. We need someone who understands it, someone who believes in it. My breath caught a mix of fear and something else I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. What happens if Eliza tries to fight it? I asked, my voice steady but quiet. Karen tilted her head. She can try, but she will lose. The documentation you've provided is airtight. We will handle the legal side. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight on my shoulders, the fear still there, but no longer paralyzing. Karen watched me carefully, her gaze calm but intense. You have a choice, Madeline. You can walk away and let them continue using your work without credit. Or you can step forward, take your place and lead. I looked up, meeting her eyes, seeing no judgment, only truth. The decision is yours, she said quietly. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like it really was. I looked at Karen, the steady calm in her eyes, the quiet power in her posture. A small voice in my head whispered that this was it. I need to think, I said, my voice lower than I meant. Karen nodded, folding her hands again. Take your time, Madeline. We're here. I closed my laptop, sliding it back into my bag, feeling the heaviness of every step I took as I stood. She stood too, walking me back down the hallway. The mission patches seemed to blur as we passed, but the air felt clearer somehow. When we reached the glass doors, she stopped. You know, Madeline, the hardest part of genius isn't the building. I looked at her, confused, clutching the strap of my bag. It's the claiming, she said, her voice calm, her eyes kind but sharp. People are quick to celebrate a bright mind until it threatens their comfort. I swallowed, feeling something heavy and bright at the same time in my chest. My family will come after me. Karen gave a small, steady nod. They will try. I don't want to destroy them, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. She held my gaze. You're not destroying them, Madeline. You're setting boundaries. There's a difference. The quiet confidence in her words made something inside me steady, like a trembling glass finally settling on a table. I nodded once, gripping the bag tighter, the familiar plastic edge of the folder inside digging into my palm. Karen glanced at her watch. If you decide to move forward, we can begin the legal transition by Monday. Sentinel needs you. We can't keep it in limbo. I exhaled, the weight of her words pressing against the fear in my chest. She opened the door for me, and the cold DC air swept over my face as I stepped out. The sky was a hard gray, clouds moving fast, wind pressing against my coat. I stood on the sidewalk, cars passing, horns in the distance, the world moving around me as I stood still. I walked to the edge of the street, the crosswalk light blinking red, people moving around me, rushing to meetings, to coffee, to things that felt so far away from where I was standing. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, the screen lighting up with a new message. Eliza. The preview flashed. We need to talk. I stared at it, the wind whipping my hair across my face, cold slicing across my cheeks, grounding me. Another buzz. This time from Mom. Don't do this, Maddie. Then another, Dad. We can fix this as a family. Don't ruin everything. My fingers tightened around the phone, the cold biting into my skin as the screen glowed in the gray morning. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, my breath clouding in the air, each inhale sharp, forcing me to stay steady. They were scared. They should be. I turned, looking back at the SpaceX building, the glass reflecting the gray sky, the future that was waiting, a future that for once wasn't built on someone else's permission. Karen's words echoed in my head. The decision is yours. I stood there, the city moving around me, a taxi horn blaring, a bike messenger cutting through the lane, a mother pulling her child across the crosswalk, the world living while I chose. And for the first time, I was ready to choose. I reached into my bag, pulling out the folder, feeling the weight of every late night, every skipped holiday, every quiet moment. I told myself it would all be worth it. I opened it, flipping to the first page, the one that still had Eliza's name at the top, my name buried at the bottom. I pulled a pen from my pocket, clicked it open, and crossed her name out in thick black ink. Above it in clear letters, I wrote Madeline Harper, lead developer. My phone buzzed again, and I didn't look this time. I closed the folder, holding it close to my chest, the ink still drying, the cold wind cutting across my face. I turned toward the street, lifting my chin, letting the cold air clear the noise in my head. I took a breath. And I stepped forward. The letter was waiting for me when I got back to my apartment. A thick white envelope, heavy, my name printed in sharp black letters across the front. I knew before I opened it. I stood by the counter, keys still in my hand, breath held as I tore the seal. Inside, pages of legal language, but the words were clear enough. Notice of civil action, misappropriation of family intellectual property. I let out a slow breath, the paper trembling in my hand as I set it down. They were really doing this. My phone buzzed on the counter, lighting up with a news alert. Harper family tech scandal, cousin accused of stealing family project. I opened it, the headline sitting like a weight on my chest, the photo of Eliza smiling, chin tilted, fake tears in her eyes. I clicked the video. Eliza stood at a podium, camera flashes bouncing off her white blazer, voice shaking just enough to look fragile. My cousin Madeline is struggling, she said, eyes glistening. She's dealing with personal issues, and we only want to help her get the care she needs. I could hear the reporters, the shutters clicking, the murmurs of brave and compassion. She was good. My hands curled into fists. Another alert. A comment thread under the live stream. Crazy tech girl. Ungrateful brat. She's trying to ruin her own family. The words blurred as I scrolled each one, slicing deeper than I expected. Then another buzz. A message from Grandma Evelyn. You're not crazy. You're brilliant. Don't let them scare you. I closed my eyes, letting her words wrap around me, steadying me for a moment. My phone rang, jolting me. Madeline. Karen's voice was clear, calm. We saw the press conference. SpaceX is moving forward with legal support. We're filing an injunction to freeze the transfer of Sentinel. I swallowed, nodding even though she couldn't see me. They're saying I'm unstable. Karen's voice didn't change. They're afraid. That's why they're attacking you. I wiped a tear that slipped down, anger and fear tangling in my chest. What if I lose? You won't, Karen said firmly. We're with you. I exhaled, my breath shaking as I nodded again. Okay. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse, Sentinel folder in hand, hair pulled back, black blazer on, the cold air biting my cheeks. People turned as I passed, whispers following me like shadows. Crazy tech girl. Family traitor. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, fluorescent lights humming, the air dry and cold. Eliza was already there, sitting with her lawyer, her eyes red but her lips curled into a small, satisfied smile when she saw me. My parents sat behind her. Mom's eyes sharp, Dad's jaw tight. I didn't look away. The judge entered, everyone standing, the sound of chairs scraping across the floor echoing in the small room. We sat. Eliza's lawyer stood first, clearing his throat, papers in hand. Your Honor, we are seeking immediate injunction to prevent Miss Madeline Harper from distributing, profiting from, or further claiming ownership over the Sentinel system, which was developed under family guidance. I felt the burn in my chest, but I kept my face still. Karen stood, her presence quiet but firm. Your Honor, we have submitted metadata, commit logs, and independent verification from MIT and SpaceX confirming Miss Harper as the sole creator and developer of Sentinel. The judge, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, flipped through the files in front of her, the room quiet, the air heavy. She looked up, her gaze moving between me and Eliza. Miss Eliza Harper, do you have documentation to prove your claim of co-development? The judge asked. Eliza shifted, her lawyer whispering something quickly, her lips tightening. We will provide documentation, Your Honor, her lawyer said. The judge's gaze didn't waver. You have 7 days to present proof of code commits, development logs, or any tangible evidence supporting your claim. I didn't move, didn't blink, as Eliza's eyes finally met mine. She looked away first. I watched her jaw tighten, her fingers digging into the sleeve of her blazer. The judge's gavel hit softly. Court is adjourned for now. We will reconvene in 7 days. The bailiff called out and people stood shuffling papers and clearing throats, but the air felt frozen around us. Eliza's lawyer leaned in, whispering quickly, her face pinched with forced calm. Eliza nodded, her eyes darting back to me then away again. I stood slowly, feeling the weight of every gaze in the room. Mom's eyes were sharp, but her hands were trembling as she clutched her purse. Dad kept his arms folded, his jaw tight, but I saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes before he looked down. Karen stepped closer, her hand brushing my arm lightly, grounding me. You did well. I nodded, my breath slow, steady. Thank you. As we walked out of the courtroom, the reporters waiting outside turned, the flash of cameras cutting through the dim hallway light. Madeline, did you steal Sentinel from your family? Are you mentally unwell like your cousin claims? Is it true you're being cut off by your parents? Their voices overlapped, sharp, hungry. I kept walking, Karen's presence, a steady shield beside me, the folder pressed against my chest like armor. Outside, the cold air bit at my skin, the wind whipping hair across my face, but I let it stay, the sting reminding me I was here, I was real. A camera crew moved closer, the red light blinking as a reporter shoved a microphone forward. Madeline, do you have anything to say about the claims you're unstable? I paused, letting the wind clear the noise in my head. I lifted my eyes to the camera, letting them see me, really see me. I built Sentinel, I said, my voice calm, clear. And I am not afraid. I turned and kept walking, leaving the questions hanging in the cold air behind me. Karen unlocked the car and I slid into the passenger seat, the door shutting out the noise, leaving only the low hum of the heater. She glanced at me, a small smile at the corner of her mouth. They didn't get to you. I let out a breath, my hands still gripping the folder, my knuckles white. They tried. We drove in silence, the city moving past the windows, headlights and taillights smearing across the glass as we turned onto the freeway. My phone buzzed again. A new message from Grandma. Proud of you, sweetheart. Keep going. I smiled, the first real smile in days, letting the warmth of her words settle in my chest. Karen's phone rang and she answered, her voice shifting into professional calm. "This is Karen." I heard a pause, then her voice brightened slightly. "Understood. We'll prepare." She hung up, glancing at me. "SpaceX wants you to prepare your full documentation. They're backing your claim publicly tomorrow." I nodded, the weight of it hitting me, but for once it didn't feel like it would crush me. It felt like momentum. As we pulled up to my apartment, I saw a black car parked across the street. Inside, I could see Eliza sitting in the backseat, her lawyer beside her, both of them watching as I stepped out. Our eyes met through the glass. She didn't look away this time, neither did I. The wind caught the edge of my coat as I stood on the curb, the city noise swirling around me. I lifted my chin, meeting her stare. And I smiled. Eliza looked away first, her eyes flicking down as the car pulled off the curb. I watched the taillights disappear into traffic, cold air biting at my cheeks as I stood there, letting the moment settle in my bones. The morning of the next hearing came fast, the sky a pale gray rain tapping softly against the window as I zipped up my black blazer. Karen met me outside the courthouse, her umbrella shielding us both from the drizzle. "Ready?" she asked. I nodded, gripping the folder in my arms. Sentinel's weight reminding me why I was here. Inside, the courtroom felt colder, the overhead lights harsh, reflecting off polished floors. Eliza was already there, sitting beside her lawyer, her face pale, lips pressed tight, fingers twisting around a tissue she hadn't used. I took my seat, letting the chair ground me as I placed the folder on the table. The judge entered and the room stood, the scrape of chairs echoing before everyone sat again. "Eliza Harper." The judge began, her voice calm but sharp. "Do you have the required evidence to support your claim?" Eliza's lawyer stood, clearing his throat, papers rustling too loudly in the quiet room. "Your Honor, we have a presentation prepared to demonstrate Miss Harper's contribution to Sentinel." The judge raised an eyebrow. "A presentation?" Eliza's lawyer nodded, plugging in a USB. The screen flickered to life, slides popping up, screenshots of Sentinel's interface, a few lines of code, images of Eliza at a laptop. It was glossy, pretty. But it was empty. No metadata, no commit logs. No proof. Just pictures, curated moments meant to sell a lie. The judge leaned forward. "Is this your evidence of development?" Eliza's lawyer swallowed. "It demonstrates her involvement in." "Sit down," the judge said, her voice calm, final. Karen stood calm and direct. "Your Honor, with your permission." The judge nodded. Karen connected my laptop, the screen filling with real data, timestamps, commit logs. Git history, spanning years, late night pushes, test failures, debug notes. We played the video from my MIT dorm, my voice explaining Sentinel's architecture, my hands sketching logic flow on a whiteboard, the glow of the desk lamp catching my tired face as I spoke. Then the letter from Professor Halbridge confirming my solo authorship appeared on screen. Next came the document from SpaceX, verifying that Sentinel's code matched my commits and metadata with independent verification signatures. The room was silent except for the quiet clicks of reporters' cameras and the soft hum of the projector fan. I looked over at Eliza. Her face was pale, her hand over her mouth, eyes wide as she watched the truth play out in front of her, unable to deny it now. She glanced at her parents. Mom's face was tight, her jaw clenched, refusing to meet my eyes. Dad's eyes darted between the screen and Eliza, confusion and shame flickering across his features. Eliza's lawyer cleared his throat again, his fingers tapping nervously on the table. The judge's gaze moved to Eliza, steady and unreadable. "Miss Harper, do you have any further evidence to present?" Eliza's lips parted but no words came out. Her lawyer shifted beside her, his mouth opening, then closing as he lowered his head. "No, Your Honor," he finally said. The judge nodded slowly, turning a page in the file before her. Behind me I could hear reporters whispering, "She really built it. That's her code." So the cousin lied. The words wrapped around me like a shield, not noise this time, but confirmation. I turned to look at Eliza. Her eyes met mine, glassy, her lips trembling. She mouthed something I couldn't fully catch. "Please." But I didn't look away. Not this time, not ever again. Eliza's eyes darted down her shoulders, collapsing as the judge continued to speak. "The evidence is clear," the judge said, her voice echoing in the silent room. "Miss Madeline Harper is recognized as the sole creator of Sentinel. I felt a breath leave my chest, steady and quiet, as if my lungs finally remembered how to work. Behind me, camera shutters started clicking, the low buzz of whispers growing louder as reporters began typing, their screens glowing in the dim light. Eliza's lawyer tried to speak, but the judge held up a hand. "You will have no further interruptions, Mr. Gates. The case for injunction is dismissed." Karen touched my arm lightly, grounding me in the chaos. I turned to look at my parents. Mom's face was pale, her lips pressed tight, eyes refusing to meet mine. Dad looked older than I'd ever seen him, a crease in his forehead as he tried to find words that wouldn't come. Eliza stood slowly, tears streaking down her carefully painted face, mascara smudging as she turned toward me. She took a step forward, her hand reaching out, shaking. "Madeline," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, don't take everything." I blinked, letting the words settle, feeling the years of silence, the moments I let her take credit, the moments I let them push me aside. "You already did," I replied softly. Her mouth opened, a sob catching in her throat as she shook her head. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears falling now. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Reporters crowded closer, catching every word, cameras capturing every tear that slid down her face. "You didn't care until you got caught," I said, my voice steady, each word clear. She froze, her shoulders shaking, her lawyer trying to pull her back. But she didn't move. "Please, Maddie," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "If you don't drop this, I'll lose everything." I felt Karen beside me, her presence a quiet wall of support, but I didn't need it to stand anymore. "You should have thought about that," I said, my voice calm. "I'm not dropping it." Eliza's face crumpled, a sob escaping as she covered her mouth, backing away as her lawyer led her out, reporters following their questions sharp and fast. I stood there, letting the moment sink in. The truth was loud now. And it wasn't going away. Karen leaned in, her voice low. "You did it." I nodded, clutching the folder, my fingers pressing into the edge, grounding me in the reality that this was mine now. As we stepped outside, flashes of cameras met us, reporters shouting questions, the cold air sharp as it hit my face. "Madeline, how does it feel to finally get recognition? Are you pressing charges against your cousin? What's next for Sentinel?" I paused, looking at the cameras, letting them see me, really see me. Then I turned, walking down the steps, Karen beside me, the city noise rising around us. My phone buzzed. A notification from SpaceX. Statement: lead developer for Sentinel, Madeline Harper. I stopped, the cold wind swirling around me, the screen bright in my hand. A single moment, clear and quiet as the world kept moving. And I let myself smile. My name lit up in white letters across the LED screen at SpaceX headquarters. Madeline Harper, lead developer, Sentinel. I stood across the street for a moment, the morning breeze carrying the scent of coffee and the distant hum of city buses, the glass building reflecting the pale sunrise. For a breath, I let myself take it in. This was mine. I crossed the street, each step measured, the click of my boots grounding me as I moved past people rushing by, their heads bent over phones, the world still spinning as mine was quietly shifting. Inside, the lobby was bright, filled with muted conversation and the hiss of the coffee machine. Karen met me by the elevators, a badge already clipped to her blazer, her dark eyes warm as she took me in. "You're ready," she said. I nodded, my hands clutching the strap of my laptop bag so tightly that the leather creaked. "Yeah," I managed a small breath of a word, but it was enough. The elevator ride was quiet, the numbers blinking softly as we rose each floor, carrying me closer to the room where I would reclaim everything. We stepped out onto a floor lined with framed photos, rockets lifting through clouds, engineers around monitors, teams in flight suits, moments that mattered. I thought about Sentinel, the code that kept me up at night, the lines of logic I had written by the glow of my dorm lamp, the test failures, the breakthroughs, the nights I cried, the moments I smiled alone. And now Sentinel would be here too. The press room was bright, rows of chairs filling as journalists set up cameras, some testing sound, others flipping through notepads. At the front, a simple podium stood against a clean backdrop where Sentinel's logo was printed beside my name. It didn't feel loud, it felt right. I paused, letting the image settle, letting the weight of it press into me until it became part of me. I remembered that graduation day, the way Mom pushed the folder into my hands, the way her voice cut through the cheers around us. Sign it, give it to Eliza. How small I felt, how silent, how I let myself be erased. A flicker of that memory crossed my mind, but it no longer stung. It was a marker, a reminder. Karen placed a hand on my arm. It's time. I moved toward the podium, each step quiet, deliberate, the lights above warming my skin as I lifted my eyes to the crowd. People shifted, the hum of conversation dipping into quiet. I saw the reflection of the camera lights in the glass windows blinking softly like distant stars. At the front, a young woman with a press badge caught my eye. She gave a small nod, her recorder already lifted. I set down my notes, but I didn't need them. My hands rested lightly on the podium's edge, grounding me as I looked out. I thought of Eliza, her tears, her trembling hands as she whispered apologies she didn't mean. I thought of my parents, of Dad looking down, of Mom's eyes turning away, of the family dinners where my silence was the price of peace. And I thought of Grandma Evelyn, her hands warm as she squeezed mine, her voice steady as she said, "They don't get to write your story." I lifted my chin, letting the lights find me, letting the cameras capture the quiet strength I carried. And I took a breath. I was ready to speak. The first words came out steady, clear, carrying the weight of every sleepless night. I built Sentinel alone in a dorm room at MIT, I said, letting my eyes move across the room, meeting faces, letting them see me. I built it because I believed we needed a way to protect people, to protect futures, to protect dreams. Flashes from cameras blinked, the sound a soft rhythm beneath my words. I was told to give it away. To step aside because I wasn't the face they wanted. A memory flickered of Eliza's hand on my arm, of Mom's voice in my ear, of that folder pressed into my hands. But I didn't let it linger. I was told to be silent so someone else could stand here. I paused, letting the words breathe. But I won't be silent anymore. The room was quiet, the only sound the faint hum of the lights above. Karen stood at the side, her arms folded, her small nod reminding me I wasn't alone anymore. I took a breath and smiled, letting it soften my voice. I stand here today not because I was given this, I continued, but because I refused to let it be taken. Applause broke out, soft at first, then rising, echoing in the room. I let it wash over me, letting it anchor me in the moment. When it quieted, I stepped down from the podium, walking past the cameras, past the reporters with lifted mics. Outside, the sky had cleared, a soft blue stretching above the SpaceX campus. Karen joined me, her hand resting on my shoulder for a moment before stepping back. "You did it," she said, her smile quiet, warm. I nodded, the morning breeze brushing against my skin, a promise of something new. Later I took the train back to Boston, my bag resting on my lap, the gentle sway of the carriage, a comforting rhythm. The city was just beginning to glow orange with the setting sun as I stepped off the train. I walked through the familiar streets, past the coffee shop where I used to code for hours, past the library where I ran simulations late into the night. I reached Grandma Evelyn's house just as the sun dipped, painting the porch in soft gold. She was sitting there, a blanket over her lap, her eyes bright as she saw me. "You did it, sweetheart," she said, her voice warm, steady. I sat beside her, resting my head lightly against her shoulder, letting the quiet of the evening settle around us. "They tried to take it," I whispered. "But you took it back," she said, her hand squeezing mine, the light from the street lamps beginning to glow as the day ended. We sat there, the two of us, the world soft around us, the city alive, but quiet in the distance. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the peace of it sink in, letting myself feel the weight of everything I had fought for. The world moved on, but I had reclaimed my place in it. I opened my eyes, looking out at the quiet street, at the lights flickering on in windows, at the life that was still waiting for me. And for the first time, I felt ready to live it. I lifted my phone, turning on the front camera, letting the screen light up with my reflection steady, unafraid. I looked directly into it, letting the moment hold, letting the truth be seen. "They told me to give my dream away," I said softly, letting a small smile touch my lips. I reclaimed it. I let the words hang there, clear, steady. "What would you have done if you were me?"